Hey, what's up, Unbroken Nation? And I would love for you to dive into neuroplasticity, about rewiring our brains, our neural pathways, and how to really take ownership over your life.
Yeah. I'm so glad you brought that up too, because that is a huge thing that I talk about so frequently with my clients day after day, right? This idea of neuroplasticity, the simple principle that we have the ability and capacity to rewire the neural pathways in our brains. So, to oversimplify a difficult concept, just to make it a little bit easier to understand, there's this region of our brain called the ventral striatum. It's essentially where the pleasure center of our brains are. So, as human beings, we are wired to prioritize the things that bring us pleasure and joy at the end of the day. So, all the things that people prioritize, money, sex, family, all the different activities and things that we put first in our lives, we base a lot of our lifestyle habits and rhythms and patterns based on pleasure. So, one of the key ways to rewire the neural pathways in our brains is to invite opportunities to experience the joy and the pleasure and the satisfaction and gratification of a new, healthier habit and behavior. And over time, the pairing and the association between the stimulus and the dopamine that gets released in our brains in response to the pleasure that we receive is what helps unconsciously rewire and retrain our brains to then accommodate for new, healthier habits and patterns. It's something that I talk about all the time. I do a lot of couples counseling myself. And one way that neuroplasticity plays out is even in how we relate to other people, right? We, in relationships to other people, experience so much conflict and tension as a society, whether there's anger, bitterness, frustration, disappointment that interferes with our ability to connect with and relate to other people. But one way to rewire how we connect with and to become more intimate and more deep and have more meaningful relationships is to invite pockets and windows of opportunity to really experience pleasure and joy in how we connect with others. And one of the ways we do that is through holistic health and wellness. So that's part of why, from my perspective as a counselor, one thing I talk about very frequently is the biopsychosocial model, just this idea that in order to maximize and optimize our capacity for being able to be as healthy and well-rounded as we can be, we have to look out for four areas of our health and wellness: our biological, our psychological, our social, and our spiritual health and wellness. So, in a lot of the things that I encourage and invite my clients to practice, there are pockets and windows of opportunity in each of these four categories to, on a daily basis, continually practice healthy habits that rewire their neural pathways and challenge them to experience joy and pleasure in the new, healthier lifestyle patterns that they're living into day by day.
Let's go into that a little bit deeper, because I think that one of the things we could do here is set a precedent and a baseline for people to understand the science of actually what's happening in those moments, in those pockets of joy. Because
Yeah.
even this morning, I'll give you a great example. Normally, my mornings is like I wake up, meditate, journal, go to the gym, get into the show. And this morning I woke up and I thought to myself, actually, you know what I want to do? I'm going to drive out to Red Rocks here in Denver. I'm going to climb all the stairs as my workout, and I'm going to sit there for half an hour and just absorb and be present and experience the world and let that thing soak in. And for me, like, I recognize, I understand what happens in those moments where you're leveraging the thing that brings you pleasure in your life. But can you talk about and break down for someone listening right now, what is actually happening in the brain when you're stepping into creating joy in your life?
Yeah. So let's take one specific example, right? Emotional processing. I think as a society, we have a tendency of devaluing and minimizing the significance and importance of simply just being present with negative emotions. So one exercise and activity I encourage my and invite my clients to this is emotional check-ins. So I have this feeling words checklist that I give to a lot of my clients where it has a list of over 100 emotionally adjectival words to describe your internal state of being, right? It's broken down into 7 different columns: mad, sad, glad, afraid, ashamed, lonely. The list goes on. And the intensity of that emotion becomes greater and greater as you go further down the column in each of those sections. When you're processing whatever emotion it is. I'm so glad you brought up the importance of mindfulness, because this is also an opportunity to being present and aware with everything that's going on with yourself. So in addition to the neuroscience of our brains and what's going on, we're also primed to learn in a multisensory type of way. And so in order for us to really latch onto and soak in whatever thing we're trying to learn, we have to integrate as many of our five senses as we possibly can. So for something as simple as emotional processing, when it comes to difficult or negative emotions, being able to sit in the moment, setting an alarm on your phone for any time of the day, right? It could be 12:30 during the lunch hour, it could be 6:45 in the evening, it could be early morning once you get up. 10 to 15 minutes, stop what you're doing, take a moment to look at that feeling words checklist, pick a word that resonates with you in that given moment, and sit with that feeling, whatever that emotion or whatever that feeling is in that given moment, simply just sitting with it and being present in the moment. And as you're paying attention to that emotion and that feeling, you're paying attention to everything that's going on with you somatically. And what I mean by that is, where are you sensing the emotion and the feeling in your body? Sometimes we minimize and we diminish the significance of how emotions physiologically manifest in our bodies, whether we get tension in our shoulders or our jaws or neck or upper back area. So what ends up happening is, when we take a moment just to observe and to sit back and learn from those emotions, we start to experience this sense of relief, because we're like, wow, I didn't even realize that this was what was happening. So this region of our brain that I was describing, the ventral striatum, what ends up happening is, from a neurological level, there's dopamine that gets released. And there's this association, this cognitive association that your brain creates once the pleasure and the joy is then received and experienced by you. So from that experience, even integrating something multisensory as, I'm going to pay attention to my body rhythms, I'm going to focus on my breathing, I'm going to focus on how I feel right now, I'm going to verbalize it and speak it out loud, so it's auditory as well. Being able to integrate multiple senses gives you the opportunity to really soak in that experience and go, wow, okay, in this moment, I'm learning about all these different things that are going on with me. Let me continue to do this, because this kind of feels good. And there's a sense of relief that comes with being able to release some of that negative energy, being aware of it, being present with it, not ignoring it, not distracting from it, but just being there in that moment.